Welcome to Dr. Morningstar's Investigations. Episode 1, Sharpen the Devil's Teeth, the Jeanette de Palma murder.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to our first episode of Dr. Morningstar's Unsolved Murders in the Occult. And very excited. This is a new genre for us, but we've worked very, very hard in this investigation.
Yes.
And we're very excited to bring you what we found. We're going to uncover the case first, tell you what happened back in that fateful day, or fateful summer, I should say, of 1972. At Jersey's own Jeanette de Palma. Horrible, horrible murder that happened to her. Very, very interesting, all these things that happened, still unsolved till today. Just before we get really into it, I'm your host here, Finley. And I'm here with Cassie, right here
Hi.
to my right, master investigator. We're also here with our good friend Lily.
Yes.
Which you can see underneath Cassie, our nice possessed doll. So we're very excited. This is episode 1, Sharpens the Devil's Teeth. And like I said before, our goal for this show and moving forward is to shed light on unsolved murders. We will also be investigating the occult, aliens, conspiracy, urban legends, like if that teacher really got his dick caught in the vacuum cleaner or not.
Whatever happened to the whatever happened to the peanut butter dog girl? Yeah,
Peanut butter
that's
dog
it.
girl, or
Yeah.
the hot dog girl, by the way.
Oh, hot dog, yeah.
Yes. We're going to investigate all of that. But tonight is about Jeanette de Palma. And Cassie, do you have anything to say with the intro?
I mean, it was extremely tragic, and thinking about what she went through. She was 16 years old. I mean, we have kids that are one's close to that age. To just even imagine something like that happening to my kid.
It's horrible.
As a parent. I mean, even just thinking about like a friend, so having something happen to my friend.
Right.
So, I'd love to be able to maybe figure out what happened, maybe what we think is right. I don't know. A lot of people are dead that were close to her. Almost her whole family's gone. Plus some other people that, she was associated with it.
They all died in Ukraine. No,
Yes, no.
It was COVID.
No. But so it's been like a very interesting and difficult kind of investigation, just because of there's a lot of things missing.
And you think back then, it was so easy for somebody to go missing, somebody to get murdered, because there was no phones back then. You have to make a phone call, you have to find a payphone, and who the hell knows where. But these days are just as dangerous with the Ubers and everything online and your whole profile, everything that you're doing.
Your whole life is online.
They can track you on Snapchat, so it's just as dangerous.
Yep.
So we have a mission here tonight. So we're going to bring you this whole case in chapters. That's right.
Yes.
Total of 5 chapters. And the first chapter, we're going to introduce you, if you don't know who Jeanette de Palma is, what happened. Well, actually, I'm sorry. We're going to tell you what happened to Jeanette de Palma first. Okay, so on the afternoon of Monday, August 7th, 1972.
Oh, she died on Monday?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Jesus. Talk about a kick in the teeth.
I know.
16-year-old Jeanette de Palma left her home on Clearview Road in Springfield Township, Union County, New Jersey. One of the most surprising things I realized on everybody that lives in Union County isn't black. So...
No, that Springfield area is affluent.
Yeah, I guess it is. I learned that. She told her mother that she was going to take a train to a friend's house. When she did not arrive at her friend's house or return later that evening, her parents filed a missing person report with the Springfield Police Department the following day. 6 weeks later, on September 19th, I don't know if that was Monday too, the Palma's remains were found atop a cliff inside of Springfield's Hootedale Quarry, which I've come to find out is one of the most creepiest places on the face of the earth, after a local dog brought her decomposing right forearm and hand back to its
Wonderful.
owner.
Imagine walking your dog and having it come back with an arm.
Ever since I read about this case, every time our dog comes in the house, I look for an arm.
You check for an arm?
Yeah, check for an arm. We live in the fucking woods. According to several witnesses at the scene, the Palma's skeletal remains were surrounded by a series of strange and possibly occult objects.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Descriptions vary, but the most commonly agreed upon account states that the remains were found inside a coffin-shaped perimeter of fallen branches and logs. And inside this perimeter were several small makeshift wooden crosses. Now, this is where it kind of gets creepy because, it's not just like one person said, oh, she was in this coffin of wood or this made of wood and cross. This was like a known thing. There's actually a drawing of the crime scene that looks like there's crosses around her and shit, which throws some doubt whether it is or not a satanic cult that offered her, or a witch's coven.
But you could also say that people banded together to spread this rumor.
True, to cover something up.
Or somebody started the rumor, and, back then, it was like, oh, well, yeah, I saw that too. Like, try to, jump on the bandwagon sort of thing.
Right. Now, some Springfield residents later claim that the Palmer's remains are found lying on a pentagram. Not sure if that is entirely. That sounds a little
far-fetched.
Far-fetched. Surrounded by mutilated animal remains.
That's really sounds far-fetched.
Well, and it's in the woods, isn't there? Animal remains all over the fucking place.
Exactly.
I mean, it's kind of like you just walk down the fucking path, you'll find animal remains. So that's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of a given. So law enforcement authorities have denied that this was true. Further controversy was aroused when it was discovered that the body had been found on a cliff to locals for several decades, known as the Devil's Teeth. Thank God it was called that, because it gave good titles for everybody that does podcasts now about her. And books. Yes.
And Weird New Jersey articles.
Yes. But it actually was the name of this creepy looking cliff. But, if I think about it, we're in New Jersey. If you're not listening from New Jersey, there's a magazine here called Weird New Jersey, and they document all the weird and crazy stuff that's going on in the state.
Kind of like what we do.
Back then, there was the Devil's Tower.
Yep.
There was
the New Jersey Devil.
The Demon's Alley.
Mm-hmm.
There was a Jersey Devil.
Yep.
So we like to name things devil here. So I don't know where that name came from, but I'm sure somebody's like, oh, it looks like a tooth. Let's call it Devil's Tooth. Yeah, I don't know.
I know.
And for all I know, something creepy could happen.
And it did probably sound like that when they named it, because there's a lot of Italians in Springfield area.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like, yo, Vinny, that looks like devil teeth.
Bing, yeah, it looks kind of evil.
Bada bing.
Yeah. I don't brush my teeth, but the devil may brush his. Gabagool. The Springfield Police Department began an investigation of the Palmer's death after an autopsy could not reveal the cause of death because she decomposed too much. Her remains and clothing showed no evidence of bone fractures, bullet wounds, or knife strikes. That's okay, because I think the person that killed her didn't use any of that stuff.
No.
No drug paraphernalia was found on or around the body.
However,
yes,
there was a quercetin bottle.
Well, we're gonna get to that. I have that. We're gonna get.
Isn't that considered drug paraphernalia? I mean, I guess recreational drug paraphernalia, you should say.
And there's a whole thing about her and drugs that I didn't uncover until about a day or two ago.
Yes, we will talk about that later.
But I'm gonna get into that because everybody portrays her as this innocent, religious
I know some
girl, but there's other stuff going on with this broad.
Yes. Broad.
Rest in peace.
R.I.P. in peace. Sorry.
Law enforcement authorities have denied that this was true. Further controversy was aroused when it was discovered that the body had been found on a cliff. I read this, didn't I? Yes, I did. I apologize. All right, so where was I? Leading Union County Prosecutor's Office to treat the case was an unsolved homicide. The coroner discovered an unusually high amount of lead in the remains.
Yep.
But no explanation was found for this occurrence
I think I have an explanation for that.
Explanature?
Explanature.
Nice word. I think
I have an explanation for that.
I have an explanature too for that because I think she was still alive in those.
Well, we'll talk about that later.
I know.
We're getting into too much right now.
I'm jumping the gun.
Jumping the gun.
Yes.
Slow tease.
She jumped life. Anyway.
Oh my God.
Early in the investigation, Springfield police received a tip regarding a homeless man, Beltruso Red, that lived in the woods near the quarry. This man was known to locals simply as Red, Beltruso Red, and it was alleged that he fled his campsite in the woods shortly after the Palmer went missing.
Can I say it right?
Yes, go ahead.
Baltus roll.
Wouldn't balls go roll?
Baltus roll.
Balls go roll.
No, Baltus roll.
Baltus roll. Like balls, tuss.
Baltus roll.
Baltus roll. Got it. I'll say it wrong next time I say it.
I know you will.
While this lead initially looked promising, the Union County Prosecutor's Office ultimately decided that Red had nothing to do with the Palmer's death. Isn't it, anytime you watch a murder mystery movie or read a murder mystery novel, everybody always is first to blame the homeless guy. He's always the guy that everybody blames first. Oh, it must have been that guy who lives in the woods.
Okay. Segue into my shirt, Friday the 13th shirt. It's always the crazy guy. The crazy guy. They blamed him too. Just Crazy Ralph.
Crazy
Ralph. Crazy Ralph.
Friday the 13th, the guy's like, you're doomed.
Everybody's doomed. And they're like, it's just Crazy Ralph. He's just killing people.
So not only does he have nowhere to live, he's poor, never gets laid. He probably smells like a garbage dump. Now he's blamed for murder for everything. Investigation continued to attempt to find. Now this guy just disappeared, and they just threw him out as a suspect. I don't think he killed her anyway. He also worked part-time at the golf course. The Baltimore.
Well, that's why they called him Baltusrol.
I guess that would make sense.
Yeah, he probably. Wait, he's homeless, but he had a job.
Yeah, I guess to pay for his booze and food. I guess. I mean, you gotta have some money. I guess.
Kind of weird. Okay.
But due to lack of tips from the public, along with the inconsistent stories told by the police, told to the police by her family, friends, and peers, the case eventually went cold.
Which is what usually happens.
What usually happens. Correct.
Especially with all people dying and stuff.
Yes. So I mean, I guess there were so many things happening back then. I mean, like, as far as there was no CSI,
no DNA.
I know what they had, like a magnifying glass, and that's how they solved the murders.
There was no DNA.
No DNA because
not at all.
They really had nothing to go on except
that really
speculation.
didn't come into play until the 80s and 90s. DNA.
Right. It was just speculation at that point.
Fingerprints.
The lead investigators in this case were Frank Drebin and Inspector Clouseau. No, I'm kidding. Seemed like anytime they had a lead, they fell through the window or something. This police department. I don't know. I guess, like I said, it must have been tough. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to bring up before I forget, and I think I've discussed this with you before, Cassie. What was between the period of 1969 and 1991 where mass murder was
drugs,
just
drugs
shine? Do you think it was acid?
I think it was acid
or something they put in the weed.
Something because, I mean, think about it. All right, so you've done acid, I've done acid. Most people in the 90s did acid that we were friends with, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, I mean, it's a known substance that changes your brain. It does. It does a chemical reaction in your brain that changes your brain. It's like known to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, what if there were people in the 60s, 70s that experimented with this shit when it was like clean, like pure acid, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, they already had something in them that was like kind of messed up or like psychotic or whatever, and they did drugs and it brought it out.
Underlying.
Right.
So here's a crazy conspiracy theory for you folks. The COVID-19 vaccine seems to brought out underlying conditions in people, physical conditions.
Yes.
What if acid was released to the people and brought out underlying psychological
I wouldn't be surprised.
conditions? Which would make sense because the number of serial killers, starting with the Manson family all the way up to Dahmer, was insane in that time period.
Yeah.
I mean, from 1969 to 1991, there was a million.
Plus, here's the other thing. Now, I don't want to get all like crazy about doctors and medical, whatever, but I mean, it's also known that when women were pregnant in those times, the medical fields didn't know much and they prescribed shit to women that was affecting the baby.
Yes.
I mean, it's known with those. There's all those seal babies from in the late 60s, late 50s, early 60s that had those arms that were all fucked up.
But they put like leeches in the vagina.
No, they put like stuff and they gave them a medicine for like morning sickness, and it fucked up these kids. Right?
Wasn't there a chemical in the milk too? I thought like in the.
Well, that too, and they were also giving medicine. I mean, if you watch Dahmer, we're watching it right now. We're not done.
Very good on Netflix, by the way. Check it out. Monster.
If you watch it though, I mean, his mom clearly has mental
Mental
problems, but the doctor was also prescribing her medications that she was taking while she was pregnant.
Right.
That easily could have affected him.
Right.
So like that's a whole other thing that during that time frame, mothers were not very careful with what they were putting in their body, and it was affecting the babies.
The other factor you got to keep, and they mentioned this in that show as well. Not to harp on the show too much, but we should look into how many of these serial killers had surgery when they were kids. Because the anesthesia might have fucked them up mentally too.
Right.
So like they were saying, Dahmer was never the same after he had a hernia surgery when he was 4 years old. But anyway,
he claims that he was like this from birth though.
Yeah, but he's also crazy. So
claimed he's dead.
Yeah. And how do you really know if you're crazy or not when you're under 4 years old?
How do you really know if you're crazy if you're really crazy? Don't you think you're normal? Like, don't most
he knew he was crazy.
Yeah, but don't most crazy people not know they're crazy?
I think some do. Like the retards down south that like rape people and stuff like that. I don't think they know they're crazy, but I think that these for example, Dahmer, Ted Bundy. I think they knew they were nuts. I think they knew they had a problem, like an urge they couldn't suppress, and they just had to do it. But I think they knew what they were doing was wrong. I don't know. That's my theory, but what do I know? So anyway, so that is what happened to Jeanette De Palma. So next we're going to look into who is Jeanette De Palma. Who is this broad? So let's check out who is Jeanette.
Who is this broad?
Yes.
She's dead. Can we be respectful of Jeanette?
Okay, so a little backstory on Jeanette. Jeanette DePalma was born on August 3rd. What's with August in this chick? August 3rd,
Yeah, it was her birth. She died like.
Oh, that's right. Right
birthday.
after, right after her birthday. August 3rd, 1956, and lived an upper middle class life in the New Jersey suburb of Springfield Township. The DePalmas raised Jeanette and her siblings in a devout Christian household. Fun. They lived in a beautiful house on Clearview Road, like I mentioned before, where the Manhattan skyline was visible on a clear day, but far enough from the hustle and bustle of the Big Apple to make the crime rate nearly non-existent. 4 days before she disappeared, Jeanette DePalma celebrated her 16th birthday. The celebration was largely unremarkable, as the teenager was closely associated with her faith. As such, partying, was off the table. So, the story, or at least the story that's in print that you can read, is she was this devout Christian girl. She didn't party.
Right.
She didn't do anything. She was innocent, which kind of feeds into the whole. Oh, I think we're skipping a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
Kind of feeds into the whole Satanistic cult theory, which is coven theory.
Right.
So, but we come to find out that that's necessarily not really the case. So, August 3rd, 1956, Jeanette's family, according to the newspaper articles, belonged to the Assemblies of God Evangelical Church in Elizabeth. This is important. The article also quoted Jeanette's parents as someone who tried to lead others to Jesus, also very important, and said that she was involved in community work to aid drug addicts and planned on attending a Bible college. I don't know how true that is.
Bible college.
Yes, Bible college. That all says to me that she had a wild streak in her. I don't know. I seem to think partying was not off the table.
Right.
By all accounts, she's a very nice religious girl, to the point where she would try to convert, like I said, so-called Satanists to find Jesus. And like I said, that leads into the Satanistic theory. Like one of the theories that the police came out with is that she was trying to convert Satanists, so that's why they murdered her
right.
before Halloween.
Because she used to talk about God all the time or something.
Right. So you talk about God and try to take Satanists, which Satanism was very popular back then for some reason.
In the 80s, yep.
Yeah,
70s, 80s.
70s, 80s, and try to convert
drugs,
them. So I'm sure people that really wanted to be a Satanist didn't really take a kinding to, if that's even a phrase.
It's not, but that's okay.
Through unconfirmed sources, it has been alleged that DePalma was close with Reverend James Tate. That's a name you're going to want to remember. Regularly attending church services and working with him in a program designed to assist drug-addicted teens through the First Assemblies of God Church, like I mentioned before. By the way, I looked up this church on Google Maps. It's one of the creepiest-looking churches I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Yes. It's on some like urban road, and it's like green. And oh my god, it looks.
It's like green.
Shit, and still looks the same, which is really
green.
Creepy. Yeah, it's like green. The top is green, and it looks like shit.
Weird.
The source further alleges that DePalma once found herself caught in the web of addiction. Important, because till this point, everybody said that Jeanette DePalma was this innocent girl, never did drugs, never partied. But I guess she was an addict at one point, according to this account.
I want to know what she was addicted to, though.
I'm guessing back then. I mean, like, yeah, if it was pot or something, that really doesn't count. But what if it was something more serious? You know what I mean? What if it was pills?
Maybe. But like, what pills were available back then?
Oh, there was tons of. I mean, there was stuff easier to get back then. There was that speed pill that a lot of the housewives took in the 70s, the black pill.
Oh, Black Betties.
Yeah, Black Betties. So
my dad did those.
So, but that was like, it wasn't like a bad thing back then. It was pretty much normal. So the source further alleges DePalma once found herself caught. I said that, but had turned to God and her faith to lead her down the right path, and later became involved in Tate's, this guy Reverend James Tate's program, in order to help other teens struggling with similar problems. So there's a lot to be said with what I just read about her. So I think that, in my opinion anyway, I think that she was an addict at one point. I mean, when you're in this strict Christian household, I've seen it 5 million times, you want to rebel. You want to do things that they say you can't do.
Right.
Almost every teenager does it in some way or another. So I think that she rebelled. Maybe she got addicted, and she had to find, I guess she had to find God again. And she went to this Assemblies of God Evangelical. started a relationship, not a sexual relationship, started a relationship with this Dr.
guy,
Reverend James
Reverend
Tate.
James
Doctor,
Tate.
Jesus. Reverend James Tate. And, maybe she got clean at that point. Maybe she was trying to get others clean, but that's a pretty juicy part of the story, I think. I don't know, Cassie, what do you think?
No, I agree. It's very possible that this happened. Her parents freaked out, because she was like one of, 6? How many siblings did she have? Like, a lot of siblings.
6 or 7,
There was
I
like
think.
6 or 7 kids.
At least.
So they probably, freaked out because she was like, they weren't, it was like, oh my God, this wild teenage girl, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was like, they're probably like, well, we need to figure out what you're going to do. So you're just going to go to church. And they kind of made her go. And that's probably why there was it said her birthday was uneventful supposedly uneventful because that's probably what they thought. They probably were like, oh, she's just going to her friend's house, whatever. She's being good. Who knows if she was or not or whatever. We'll get to that later.
Right.
But there's a lot. There's a lot that comes with growing up in a household like that, where you're one of a certain number of kids. You're expected to be a certain way. Your parents are very religious. It's, you would want to, all kids rebel. I don't know any kids that don't rebel.
Right.
And if they don't, they're weirdos.
Exactly. And they probably grew up to be psychos if they don't rebel in the teenage years and get the piss and vinegar out of your system. So that's very interesting because that's something we found out recently is about this whole addiction thing that she was involved in. Which you never know, a suspect, and we don't have it as one of our main suspects, but one of the suspects could be somebody she used to buy drugs from or...
Well, that's all goes into my whole thing. But.
Right. So what we're going to do is we're going to get into the murder scene, but I'm not going to go to the screen because I think it's messing up our feed.
Okay, we can.
All right. Then you know what? Whatever. Let's just go. Now we're going to talk about the murder scene. Found her.
Okay.
So we're back. The murder scene. Now, she was found. What they say was an altar.
It just showed it.
And it's flashing on the screen.
There's
so
a picture that has a black square.
Right.
That's her body.
Yeah, pictures of the case are
that
popping
actually
up
fixed
here.
our feed, by the way, going to that thing.
Yeah, whatever. That's weird. I don't understand.
I think some of the backgrounds mess up little things.
I don't understand the whole internets.
It's a matter of tweaking things. That's all.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's fine.
So she was found on a so-called altar on September 14th, 1972. So months after she croaked. Her body was in the stomach. We have.
You're so terrible.
There's pictures of her when she was found. She was found a body down. Now, I'm going to talk about this. Hold on. So this is. I love this part of it. No, I love this part of it. Jesus, it's like I'm talking about a porno.
I love this part.
I love this part. Check this out. So the body was in the stomach, facing right arm over tree limb. Clothing: blue shirt, tan pants, which are very big in the 70s.
Nice, tan pants.
Brown sandals near body. Sandals are important. I'll get back to that. So her purse and her. She wore a golden cross around her neck.
Were gone.
Those were gone.
But just the purse, not the contents of the purse.
Not the contents. The contents of the purse were dumped onto the ground. Inside the contents of the purse were Markel tissues, a Vicks inhaler, small green compact lipstick. Oh, I'm sorry. Small green compact lipstick. Blue comb. Now, the blue is very important in the comb. No, it's not. I'm kidding. A key with a ring. Now, interesting. A clear vial with unknown substance. Small eyeshadow box, white clear plastic, brown sandal, brown. I should have put commas. I'm reading this like a stupid idiot. All right, so and brown sandals, away from the body. Right. Now the clear vial with the unknown substance. That's the most interesting part of it, besides the sandals. Now, the one theory that people have is was this an overdose at the party, and kids were scared, and they just kind of ditched the body because they didn't want to be blamed for the murder because maybe they gave her the drugs. So that's. I'm getting into the theories and stuff now.
Yeah, don't get into that because I'm
giving the little hint, little dips into
dips.
Little cheese dips into
dips.
What my theories are. I also looked up now the clear vial that she was found on the ground next to, back in the early 70s, they were used to hold this drug Coricidin,
which is still available, by the way.
Yes,
it's cold medication.
Now this is active ingredients. I can't even say any of these, but it's a pain reliever, fever reducer.
It's a cold medication.
Hydrobromidine, cough suppressant.
Yeah.
And it has, this is interesting, it has 10% alcohol in it.
Okay.
So was she drinking at a party and was on this medicine at the same time? And maybe that caused the overdose.
Maybe.
That's another thing you want to look at.
But here's the other thing, too. That vial was never tested.
No, it wasn't. It was not
So
tested.
it's like, what did she use a Coricidin bottle to transport something with her?
Right.
They said she was sick previously, like that she had a cold. But, like, why would you carry an empty vial of cold medicine with you?
Yeah, but who hasn't recently had a cold? I mean, it's like, that's kind of stupid to say, like, oh, he had a needle because he recently had to get strong.
What's weird? But what's weird is, like, what, like, any 16-year-old, why would you carry an empty vial of cold medicine with you if you weren't putting something in it? Because
Right.
I know for damn sure when I was 16 years old and I was trying to hide things, I would put them in other things. I still fucking do that.
It might have been smack. No, I don't know that. I don't even know what smack's carried in.
Vials?
Is it vials? Wow, maybe I was just
Baggies?
joking.
Vials?
And it was smack. No, I'm not saying that. I don't think that. So there was no there was no sign of injuries, no bullet wounds, like I mentioned earlier in the podcast.
No knife
and there was no
slashes,
drugs in the toxicology
stabbings.
report, which goes against our. No,
She was found a month later. There's not going to be any drugs
would've
in the
been out of your
toxicology
system.
report. Been out
Right.
of your system by then.
right, unless it was bath salts.
No, those get out of your system faster than anything.
On her clothing, now this is interesting too because this leads to my theory at the end. On her clothing, stains were found, but as per the crime lab, it was too decomposed to be
Which
tested
is bullshit.
for
Well, I guess
conclusive
back then it was
blood
bullshit.
or semen samples. Now, I think if they would have been able to test for the blood and semen samples, this would have been solved in the early
Oh,
70s.
absolutely.
Obviously.
If
Now-
it was today, they would. If it's today and they found a body a month later, they'd still be able to. They could take her stuff now
right.
and test it. I
Right.
mean, there's a group suing to have that done. They could take her clothes now and test it.
They'd sue in Union County, New Jersey. I think it was 2021. I think it was 2021 or 2019. I'm
I
not
thought it was
positive.
before that.
But
that was
they
before
lost the
COVID.
case. The judge, the idiot broad judge in Union County, would not grant the person who was suing for that to have that happen.
Why?
That's the question.
Right.
Are they covering something up?
Exactly.
No. So police brought. This is interesting too. When I first started investigating this case, I thought this was very cool. Police brought in a witch to help the investigation.
Why?
And somebody, the Reverend James Tate, which I think he's a fraud, but anyway,
Oh
he
yeah,
said,
yeah. Well, he's dead too.
I never did hear if the witch found anything. What is this guy, Boss Hog? I never did hear if the witch found anything. Those damn Duke brothers murdered her.
Oh my god.
He was quoted saying, I know she was there at the scene, because he said he saw her, but he was always quick to jump to the witch / Satanist
Yes.
theory
Yes.
for
But
whatever reason.
man of God.
Right.
You know.
It's always an evil force.
Yes.
It's never,
No, it's never like an evil person.
And listen, don't get me wrong. I'm not anti-God or anything like that, but
No.
some of these guys are just, it's always like, oh, because it was the devil. Come on, calm down, dude.
Yeah.
And the one thing, I question the narrative of the arm and the dog. I think it could have been placed near the apartments, by where Jeanette's body was located, because the marked state of the decomposition.
Wait, explain that again?
Okay, so I don't know if necessarily the dog went to the crime scene or the murder scene and got the arm. I think somebody may have placed the arm in a certain place, maybe because she'd be found.
Possibly.
But you couldn't tell because of the state of decomposition.
Possibly.
So
Or another animal could have brought it.
maybe. I don't know. That's kind of a far-fetched theory, but that's one of the things I thought of. Now, this is what I was talking about with the flip-flops. Somebody had to be with her because she had flip-flops.
Absolutely.
One of the investigators said. And he had hiking boots on, and he
Yep.
had trouble getting up the hill
Yep.
where she was laying. This big burly cop with hiking boots. How'd she get up there with fucking sandals? Or flip-flops, I should say. Now, I want to get back to the lead thing. Now that we're on the scene, I can talk about the lead thing. Okay, so there was high amounts of lead
But see,
found
there's a
in
lead
her
thing
body.
in my theory. So,
Well, I'll get to mine because I don't have lead thing in my theory.
okay.
All right, so now I looked up why there's a high possibility of lead in her system when they did the autopsy or the toxicology report. Now, if you're face down in soil and you're breathing in soil for a period of time, you get high amounts of lead in your system.
Okay.
So my theory is she was murdered. She wasn't dead. I'm sorry. She was assaulted or whatever, left for dead in this spot. and breathed. Maybe she was alive for a couple hours, a day, who knows? But she breathed a large amount of soil because she was face down, and that's why there's high amounts of lead in her system.
Okay.
I think she was still alive, and she just died slowly, which is terrible to think about that. But I think that might be a possibility.
Okay.
Totally, which explains the high amounts of lead, or at least one theory with the high amounts of lead. A skeletal examination and x-ray showed that the body revealed no evidence of bullet holes. I already said this a million times, but it keeps coming back up.
No stabbings.
No
nothing.
stabbings, no traumatic injury.
Right.
So, I don't know. This is one of the most interesting murder scenes that I've ever looked at.
But can we say what they did speculate?
Yeah.
They speculated that she was strangled. That's how she died.
Which leads
but
into my
they wouldn't
theory.
explain why they're speculating that. They just said, we believe that she's strangled.
Right.
There was no reason. Same thing with the lead. There's lead, but there was no reason why. It was just like, oh, there's high lead.
Right.
Oh, she was strangled. That's all they, like, they left this, like, so open-ended. These police officers, like didn't, like,
now, and you don't know if they're
embellish on anything.
Right. You don't know if they're covering something up or they're just bumbling
Or they're
idiots.
just dumb.
Yeah, you just don't know.
Or just were lazy and just didn't care.
And they even said it before, or we said it before in the podcast. This was not a high crime area, so this was something that was like, whoa, it's like the Apple Dumpling Gang, like, what,
right?
Murder,
right?
How do we do this? You know, like they don't know.
No.
And even the FBI was eventually called in to investigate. They didn't come up with shit either, so I really shouldn't say it was just the police department. But one of the most interesting murder scenes. Now, if you, we have it flashing up on the screen, but I know it's flashing by quick. But if you Google Jeanette De Palma murder scene, you'll see this photo they drew of her murder scene and what we're all talking about. Everything's just there. It's pretty crazy. Now we're gonna get into the suspects next, but before we do, we're gonna take a little bit of a break. Not very long, but one of the big things now. Back, I have to mention this because one of the theories is that this was a Satanistic cult. There's a whole thing called satanic panic in the 70s and 80s where anything that went wrong, they blamed it on Satanism. And Satan must have possessed you. The devil said I did it. Like the devil made me do it, I should say. Right. That was a big thing back then. And I put together a collage of the media and everybody telling you that Satanists were the cause of every problem in the world. So we're going to put this on. It's only like a couple minutes long. I'll be right back. And we're going to have our suspect. We're going to list our suspects. And then the most exciting part of the show would be our theories. So we'll be right back. Just stick with us a couple minutes or just come back in a couple minutes. But anyway, the video is pretty cool. All right, be right back.
But at the church of a preacher named Roy Masters.
Come out. No, I won't let her go. No.
Exorcisms of the devil appear just as sincere, far out, and dramatic.
You've lost your power. You get out of here.
With a background in show business rather than theology. Show business rather than theology. Indeed, the Army does officially recognize Satanism as a legitimate religion and supplies chaplains with this guide for ministering to the satanic soldier. Some charge that Army bases have become sanctuaries for devil worshippers. And the graffiti.
666, the sign of the devil. Over here, a bloody skull and crossbones.
This is a pentacle. The interesting thing about this pentacle is it's an upright pentacle. Let me see. It's actually fairly fresh. This is how gangs talk to each other. Okay? But now this is how occultists talk to each other. This here is a psilocybin mushroom. So probably they had a psilocybin ritual.
Mike Warnke is a former Satanist. Today he's a successful comedian, preaching Christianity in the form of humor. But back in the 60s, he was one of Satanism's high priests.
The things that you would see in a satanic altar.
He showed us what a satanic temple might resemble, and typical implements used to worship the devil.
The bones usually are used in a ceremony that calls for telling the future. I have an old 3-inch scar here on my wrist where my friends used to cut my arm open and bleed my blood into a cup and drink it mixed with wine and urine 4 times a year as a ceremony to Satan.
In May of 1982, teenagers of a congregation in Topeka, Kansas, destroyed thousands of dollars worth of records and tapes, which they felt contained the message of Satan. The Christian concern sheds light on a more secular aspect of music listening. It's what you don't hear.
Certain parts of the men's uniforms all accentuate the genitals of a male. Faceless creatures in robes that, to me, would, from my study, certainly symbolize druids, which, of course, go back to Satan worship. In the blood stains, there is very definitely, without any shadow of a doubt here, a face of Satan.
For the purposes of this study, we will focus on the number 666 and its use in the Universal Product Code.
Most people don't realize that 80% of all toys on the market have a cultic influence, and these are the most popular.
It says here that it actually makes the wings move, so let me, look at that. Isn't that amazing?
Remember those verses in the book of Revelation about the flying beast with the riders on them?
This could actually be taken from Revelations.
You'll notice that they're depicted as blue with black lips.
Well, isn't that interesting?
And you know what happens to you when you die? You turn blue and your lips turn black.
Smurfs has gone occultic.
Very much so.
Smurfs carry a homosexual connotation in that most of them are male.
I believe so.
Snake Mountain. It's got an interesting little feature here. I'm going to turn it on. It can actually transform your voice from your regular voice to that of an occultic hero. Is that correct? Let me turn this on here. I think I'm getting it too loud. Skeletor, the master of the universe.
And I've reverse thread the machine, and I'm going to play that exact piece of tape backwards now. Okay, I live with Satan, exactly. And then you'll hear there's power in Satan.
He will give you 666.
All right, folks, welcome back. That video was hilarious, actually.
Dude, I was dying laughing.
The best is Smurfs or Satanists.
Yes.
They have a homosexual element, and when you die, you turn blue.
Yes, with black lips.
Unbelievable. Jesus Christ.
They're blue with black lips? What happens when you die?
It's
you
funny.
turn blue with black lips.
The show that we used to do before this, people thought we were Satanists.
I know.
Because of the show we did.
I know.
Which is pretty far from the truth.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Really far from the truth.
Come on. So I like this part. Like, we're going to talk about the suspects in Jeanette De Palma's murder. And these aren't just, now one is a theory. The other suspects that I have on here are actual suspects that were in the case. One's a theory because this person's relatively new to the murder scene. But I'll tie it in some way. So the number one suspect is a Slender Man theory. Now I'm going to explain what I mean by that. I know Slender Man, the shitty movie came out, and that's a creepy story about the tall guy in the woods and two 12-year-old girls in Waukesha, Wisconsin, held down and stabbed.
Killed their friend, yeah.
No, they stabbed her. She didn't die.
Stabbed her friend.
And they said Slender Man told them to do this. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because we just watched a Satanistic video, and maybe kids were Satanists, and maybe they killed Jeanette De Palma in the name of Satanism. You know what I mean? That's a theory. That's a suspect, is that her friends killed her, and not her friends, maybe somebody in the school lured her into the woods and killed her in the name of Satanism. Same thing as a Slender Man type theory.
Right.
That's what I mean by the Slender Man. I don't think the Slender Man really killed Jeanette De Palma. I'm not retarded. I don't think Freddy Krueger killed her either. You know what I mean? So, like, I'm just saying, like, I think it was that could have been a suspect there. I mean, Cassie, do you have any thought on the friends theory?
I mean, my whole thing with the friends is a different animal. Like, I don't think anybody really lured her, but I definitely think there could have been something that happened with friends, but not them killing her. I don't think.
Okay, so you're more inclined for the overdose theory than the friends killing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or something along those lines, not them actually killing her, but like something happening. Like, we can get to that later.
Or maybe they were conducting a Satanistic ceremony or a witch's coven ceremony, and she died by accident. Or maybe they just left her for dead. Who knows? But
I don't think
those are all theories.
Never mind. We'll get to that later.
I don't know. I'm trying to cover every aspect.
I know.
Of the thinking process. Exactly. The other one, and we talked about it earlier in the podcast, is that a police cover-up. And I'm going to get into this a little bit. So I'm not saying it could have been the police for all I know, but I don't think the police killed this girl. maybe the person that was with her when she died or was involved in her death, maybe their father was part of the police department or somebody important,
or
like
somebody that was. We've spoken about this at length prior to being on the air, or maybe somebody. Okay, so back in the 70s, you could become a police officer right out of high school. So
Yes.
it could have been somebody that wanted to become a police officer, that, was working at the police station as like a dispatcher or something, looking to get into police officer. Or like they have these programs in high school where you follow a police, like they're junior police officer, like follow a police officer in order to get into the police, like,
Right.
to become a police officer.
I always
Because
wanted
back
to look
then-
into becoming police officer.
Shut up. Because back then, there was like, there was no real police academy or anything. It was just like basically you graduated high school and then you could, like, if you wanted to become a cop, you could, sort of thing. So like, it could have been somebody that was trying to become a police officer that something happened and they knew that this was going to affect their career. So they asked people that they worked with at the police station to cover it up.
That another possible theory as well. And just one thing I want to mention: the Devil's Teeth, that whole area that she was found, her body was found, it was a known party spot in town.
Right.
So that's another thing that ties into it. One other thing I want to mention too was on our beginning Wire video, which you should watch if you haven't seen it yet. And go back at the
It's
end.
really
of the show.
good.
Check it out because it tells you everything we're talking about. It's like all on a wire board. It's really cool. Anyway, Hurricane Floyd happened in 1999. So this is what 15 years after the murder.
Yeah, roughly.
About that.
Roughly. Yeah,
so
17
police
years.
had evidence locked up in their police department. Locked up.
Actually,
And-
wait, 99? 27 years after.
27. Jesus, I'm great at the math and stuff. They had this evidence locked up in their precinct, and Hurricane Floyd happened in 1999, and apparently all that evidence was washed away in the hurricane. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
No.
Like, I understand, like, hurricanes happen, shit gets fucked up at a police station.
Well, here's the other thing, and this is the other thing, right? So, like, all right, in the 70s, everything was on paper, whatever. But, like, by the 90s, late 90s,
Wouldn't it have
especially,
been
digital...
transported onto a computer at that point?
Exactly,
They
that's
actually
where I
have
was going with
jobs
that.
for those people.
Because I have been to the Springfield Police Department. Like, I know what it looks like. I didn't know what it looks like prior to Floyd. But I know what it looks like now. And it's not a big police department. And there's not a lot of crime in Springfield.
No.
So it's like, you could have somebody transcript some paper onto digital easily.
They hire people to do that.
So,
It's their
like,
job.
what, like, were they not? And plus, here's the other thing, right? So, like, that's bullshit. Because Weird New Jersey was able to get fucking files on her after the fact. And this other group that was looking into the people that sued for the DNA, they got a file. So how are they fucking getting files if everything's gone?
It doesn't
you know what
make
I'm saying?
sense, Cassie. It doesn't
make any sense.
Any sense.
No
Hurricane
sense.
Floyd.
Bullshit.
That was a bullshit hurricane.
I call
anyway.
bullshit.
Now another theory, and then I've talked about it a bunch of times too, is the witch's coven theory.
Oh well, suspects, not theories. Yeah.
Suspect. Oh, I'm sorry. Jesus, was a
Getting ahead of ourselves.
Witch's coven. Now I mentioned this earlier. The Watchung Reserve was known for witches. It was a thing like since 1912. There was like the theory of the four witches, and they would conduct ceremonies in the Watchung Reserve where the Devil's Teeth is located.
Why was I never invited to this shit?
You should have been a bit hot. But a number of sacrifices of dead animals were reported around the Watchung Reserve, which is less than 2 miles away from where Jeanette was found, right around the same time.
Okay.
In the park, Union County Police had found burning candles, a bowl of blood, and feathers, and pigeons with their necks snapped. So that's another thing that feeds
Where, at the
into
Watchung Reserve?
Yeah, and like within 2 miles of where Jeanette
okay.
was murdered. So,
All right.
who knows if that was planted to feed into the witch's coven Satanistic theory, or either was a ceremony and she happened to die and they found this stuff. One person who lived in the area at the time said, "I was a young teenager when the discovery of Jeanette de Palma happened and lived in the next town. About 2 years prior, there was much talk in my school about a cult in the surrounding area. They were known as the Witches. They must have let it be known in the area that they planned to kill a child on or about Halloween, either by kidnapping and sacrificing them or by poison. I remember being anxious about this because I went trick-or-treating in those days." So that's
suspects.
That's suspect.
We'll get into that later and why I don't think
another
that's correct.
letter from a relative of a local policeman read, When the dog brought the arm, I mentioned this before, but he actually said this too. Maybe where I got it from. When the dog brought the arm home and the search for the body started, they found arrows carved in the trees that would lead to the body. All around her body were dead animals tied to trees with string and some in jars. Shortly thereafter, there were reports of animals being mutilated and hung in the same fashion in the Watchung Reserve, which is also very close to the scene of the crime.
Okay.
The Watchung Reserve, or the Res, has been reported to be the center of devil worship activity for years.
Okay.
So it's when I read this stuff, I'm like, whoa, maybe this was what happened, you know? There are lots of tales of satanic cult rituals taking place and the tales of witch covens practicing in the woods in the Watchung Reserve. So this all feeds into this whole suspect of the witch's coven, which is definitely probably the most fun theory, I think. I mean, it's the most unique, and I don't know what to say. Like I said, fun theory. I'm gonna pass this off. So another suspect was a watchman who lived in the quarry. Ball Sucker Red. What was his name?
Baltusrol.
Baltusrol Red. As a homeless guy, he worked at the Baltusrol Country Club.
I've been there.
Yeah, oh, you've been there. That's right, you were.
Yep.
Well, this is quickly passed off.
It's a huge country club.
There was no evidence to tie this guy to anything. I think he was just a suspect because he was homeless.
Right. Scapegoat, weird guy. Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Now, I talked about this a little bit earlier in the podcast, but another suspect is the Reverend James Tate.
Yes.
Which was Jeanette De Palma's reverend who helped her get clean and help her stay clean or whatever. There are many who speculated the Reverend James Tate, the man who was quick to point satanic involvement in De Palma's death, presided over the Palma's family church and allegedly worked closely with De Palma through a drug rehabilitation program.
Good job, Anthony.
May have been involved in the murder. This guy reminds me of the evil priest from Silver Bullet, the movie Silver Bullet. So he was employed around the same area that De Palma's body was found.
Well, yeah, Elizabeth. He lived in Elizabeth.
And how many movies have you seen that ended up being a reverend of some kind?
Yeah, absolutely.
Helping a young girl.
Yep.
I mean, maybe he made a pass at her. You never
he
know.
also had 2 sons and a daughter.
Yeah, 2 sons that were her age.
And a daughter.
That were her age. So maybe something happened with the kids. Maybe watch he's so quick to say, oh, it was a witch's coven and was Satanists.
Right.
But it happens all the time. Like maybe he made a pass at her and she said no, and he was so afraid that he'd get exposed that maybe he did something.
Right.
And then passed it off as a witch's coven and Satanist.
Well, here's the thing. So when he died this year at 91 years old. Okay, so like we got to do the math. Hold on. So it's 50 years later.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't that old. He was like he was a young reverend, 40 years old. So I mean, it's not old. Like it's not like he was a geezer, you know. Like
true, but
no, that's what I'm saying. Like he, you know.
Right. No.
Plus, he's a reverend. He's allowed to be married. He's allowed to have children. Like he's not like
a little
priest.
Bit different, but you're also not allowed to make a pass at a 16-year-old.
True.
You know, so you know that could have had something to do with it too. This guy seems fishy though. This Reverend Tate seems fishy.
Yes, and I don't like the fact that like it was like the first one to quickly, like always say, oh, it was this group, like
right away.
It's
like when was the last time you saw Jeanette? I don't know, when she was next to those Satanists.
Right.
Well, how do you know that, man?
Right.
Like it just seems a little fishy. Hey, maybe some innocent guy, but I don't know. There's something that seems off about this whole Reverend James Tate thing.
Yes.
And I could say his name because he's fucking dead.
Yep.
Now, the next suspect. This is
the most interesting one.
Most interesting one is a gentleman named Richard Cottingham, otherwise known as the Torso Killer. He was a serial killer that killed people anywhere from 1968 all the way up to 1982.
He killed how many people? 80-something people?
He claims to have killed anywhere between 85 to 100 people.
But there's only known 13 people are only known.
13 people. So now, 2 years after Jeanette was found.
Let's talk about Richie.
Yes, Richard Cottingham. 2 years after Jeanette was found, the story of the slaying of 2 young girls in 1974, roughly the same age Jeanette De Palma, where she had gone missing 2 years prior.
And almost the same area.
The girls had been beaten, sexually assaulted, and strangled before their bodies were dumped in the wooded area of Montvale, New Jersey.
Yep.
Pointing out the similarities in the case, including the facts that Montvale is approximately a 45-minute drive from where De Palma's body was found.
Yep.
All 3 bodies were dumped in a wooden area. All 3 had been strangled, at least suspected in De Palma's case.
Right.
And to date, no killer has been indicated in any crimes that would appear that the cases are somehow related. I'm going to get more into this guy when I get into theories. But this guy's a bad motherfucker. This guy, I can't believe this guy's still fucking alive.
Yeah.
I mean, he's in a jail.
He's declining though in health.
He's declining. That's not good enough for this guy. And he's a burn to death.
Well, here's the thing. He's declining in health, so that's why they're saying like, he has
nothing to lose.
He's coming out and saying like all this shit now.
Right.
Like admitting to certain things, but like there's so many things that like point to him in this case.
There really is. I mean, there's also a documentary on Netflix about this motherfucker. It's called.
It really doesn't. But it
Times
really
Square Killer.
It really centers more on Times Square.
It's more on Times Square, but they do get into him a lot, and you learn more about him. And I mean, he was a different killer at the end before he got arrested. But I'll get more into that.
Yeah, he changed
later. So another suspect, believe it or not, because tying into this whole satanic thing would be Lilith St. Clair. She was one of the top people in the Church of Satan back in the early 70s. And they were known to kind of conduct ceremonies in the woods in the Watron Reserve.
Right.
She was a priestess, as they call her, in the Church of Satan, like I said. Yeah. But what was interesting is she had a coven that operated right next to it, and right like within a couple miles of where Jeanette was found.
Okay.
Also, a couple years prior to that, in Vineland, New Jersey, there was a Satanistic murder. Satanist cult murdered a boy. I mean, he asked to kind of be murdered because he wanted a Satanistic ceremony done, but he was murdered in New Jersey in Vineland.
And wait,
a couple years before.
They admitted to that, correct?
Yes.
Like that was like a known thing. There's a reason I'm asking this question.
No, the coven did not admit to that, but it was a known. The kids that killed this kid admitted they were Satanists.
Okay.
And there was a Satanistic coven known to be right around
that's
the area.
That's what I'm saying.
This is kind of a far-fetched theory.
But that's what I'm saying. That I'm gonna get to a point with this eventually, but they came out and said we are Satanists. We killed this kid, right?
Right.
Okay.
And this sect, this coven down there, they were kind of the kind of organization that like brainwashing kids off the street who were physically abused or had indulged in drugs.
Okay.
So they were known for that. And shortly after this murder happened with Jeanette, Lilith St. Clair left the Church of Satan because the Church of Satan wanted to get more into the spiritual aspect of Satanism and not the physical aspect.
Right.
She was more into the physical aspect of it, like ceremonies and doing crazy shit. But, you know, that's one of the suspects, but I don't know about that. I mean, maybe. I mean, you never know. But
right.
Those are essentially. Oh, I'm sorry. So, Sinclair's sect was in Middlesex County, borough of Spotswood. So kind of close. Maybe. I don't know.
Not really.
Like I said, that's kind of a far-fetched one.
Yeah.
So that's the suspects in the case. Cassie, am I missing anybody?
No.
Okay. So that
your mom.
Yeah, my mom. I don't know where she was that night. Probably being a whore somewhere. Anyway, so those are the suspects. Now we're gonna get to the most exciting part of the show, which is our theories.
Yes, part where I get to talk a lot.
Let's go to the theories. All right, so our theories. Now, I changed my theory a couple of times on this case.
I have a couple different theories.
Okay, so my original theory was it was a Satanistic witches coven type thing, but I changed my mind a lot. But I am 100% on, or I shouldn't say 100%. That would be a lie. I am 90% on board that this was Richard Cottingham, a serial killer, Richard Cottingham, a torso killer. And let me name, I'm going to give you a couple of facts on why I think this is the guy. First of all, Jeanette was basically murdered the same way that he murdered other victims around the same time, same age, same area, you know, within, 40 miles of each other.
Yep.
And he's admitted to a bunch of murders since. So in 1967, he killed Nancy Vogel. She was found naked, beaten right side of the face, black eye, strangled to death.
Yep.
In 1968, he killed Jacqueline Harp, beaten, strangled to death.
Yep.
1969, he killed Irene Bass, 18, beaten, strangled to death. Denise Falsaka, 1969, found beaten, strangled to death. It's all in New Jersey, folks.
Yep.
All around the same 40-mile area. This
Yep.
is the most disturbing one, I think. I mean, they're all disturbing. This is the most disturbing. Lorraine Marie Kelly, 16, and Marie Ann Pryor, 17, both murdered at the same time, double abduction, beaten, strangled to death. That was in Bergen County, New Jersey.
Right.
Montvale, like I mentioned before.
Right.
Hasbrook Heights, Marianne Carr, 27, beaten, strangled to death. So these are just a couple examples. There's more.
Yeah.
But
a lot more.
Jeanette De Palma, I know that she was too badly decomposed to really get all the evidence, but all signs lead to the same way that these girls died, that she died.
Yeah.
I really have no doubt. I can't. What trips me up is I can't explain the altar thing. I don't know. That's not his MO. He doesn't build altars.
But here's the thing, though. This is the thing. When Weird New Jersey got the file back, there was no altar. They had that fucking picture. They said there's no altar. She was placed in the woods. So like, and that was the file of like there's like pictures in the file of like what happened, that they were they like tried to avoid putting those pictures out for some reason.
Right.
But like so that doesn't even matter. He could have just dumped her, and maybe there was like some weird shit where he dumped her and he just dumped her there.
And that could be true. I mean, the place was known as the Devil's Tooth. It wasn't Teeth. It wasn't named that because she was found dead there. It was always named that.
Right.
So maybe there might have been weird stuff there already.
Or kids were being fucking kids and being stupid.
Right. It had stuff there already.
I mean, how many
on the trees.
I mean, seriously, how many times did you hear about the Satanic Church in Rockaway and go there? And it wasn't a fucking Satanic Church. People just thought it was a Satanic Church, and that was like the rumor.
Yeah.
Kids are fucking stupid.
And one of the other things too, and I tried to research this, I tried to find out, but for some reason there's a lot of things that are impossible to find on this case, and I don't know why.
What case?
But
her case?
Her case.
Yeah.
No, the case of the missing piece.
I thought you were talking about Cottingham or something for some reason.
No, I'm talking about Cottingham, but I'm talking about one of the suspects that I didn't bring up was a car. It was a red Ford Falcon.
Yeah.
And he drove, I believe, a Falcon. I don't know what color it was though, so I can't really tie that into each other.
I mean, they said he drove like a normal car.
Isn't a Ford Falcon a normal car?
I don't know. Is it?
Yeah, it was
Back
a four-door piece of shit.
Oh.
Yeah. So I mean, if he drove the red Ford Falcon, that was going to be one of the things I tied in. The other thing I want to mention too is that most of the females that he murdered,
dark hair,
but he also left their cross on him. What would he take? Pieces of jewelry, right?
Dude, no. I was gonna get to that, but I didn't want to like break your thunder.
But she was missing her
cross and her purse.
Purse.
So when we watch this documentary, right, like there were things that they left out of like news articles and stuff that like we were reading about this guy. But they mentioned in the documentary, and in the documentary they said that in 1969 when they went and arrested him for something, whatever it was, Mowbray or whatever the fuck.
Mowbray.
They went to his house and he had a safe and it had tons of purses in it and jewelry.
Right.
So it's like, actually it wasn't 69, it was 80 something.
It was 81.
81 when they did that. So who's to say that her shit wasn't in there and they just didn't identify any of it because it was like, oh, this is a bunch of dumb like stuff from this guy that this guy like took, and they couldn't identify. How are you going to identify that stuff? They didn't have the technology back then.
Right.
I want to know where that vault is holding all the crap that was in Richard Cottingham's fucking safe.
But also, if he killed 85, he claims to have killed 85
That's what I'm
to 100
saying.
women. Can he even remember this murder? I mean, as sad as that sounds.
He does though. Like
he's starting to
confess.
He's confessing
certain people.
But my theory. My theory at the end of the day is I think before this motherfucker dies, I think he will admit to murdering Jeanette De Palma. That's my prediction. I think this will be solved before this asshole piece of shit dies. And I think that's going to be the answer. I think that who killed Jeanette De Palma would be Richard Cottingham. One other thing I wanted to bring up too is he was also arrested a year after, or a couple months after Jeanette was found dead at the Stearns in Bergen County, at the Bergen County Mall, trying to sell jewelry. So, could it have been her jewelry? Who knows?
Right. Who knows?
That's just a far-fetched theory, but that's my theory of the whole case. Cassie, I'm very interested to hear yours, though.
Okay, so I have a couple. I kind of am going back and forth between a few things. Number one, I'm going to say that I really do not think it was the Satanist thing, and I'll tell you why.
But you made a face every time I said that.
I know. Tell you why. Satanists, for the most part, are people that want to be found out. They want people to know. They do it for a reason. They do it for a shock value. They do it to be the devil, to know that the devil knows that they're doing something, right? So because the fact that they didn't admit to the fact that they did this,
Mm.
which is why I asked, did those kids admit that they were Satanists and killed this kid? And you said yes. They would have been the first people to say, yes, we killed her and we sacrificed her and it was great and we did this ritual. Like, they would have admitted to it because they don't fucking care.
No.
They want people to know and be afraid.
Right.
And, you know, they want people to recognize that they're doing bad shit in the name of Satan.
Right.
They want Satan to recognize it. So I don't think it was Satanists at all. At all. Like, I don't care if people were freaked out. I don't care, whatever. I remember growing up in the 90s and the 80s before there was, like, real internet or whatever, and people always, there was always little rumors going around about so-and-so, you know, got involved with, like, this cult, or, oh, there's, like, scary people, like, around, and, like, whatever. Those were rumors that came up. Like, when you said that whole thing about, like, Halloween and they were going to sacrifice a kid, who the fuck knows if parents didn't start that rumor in order to keep kids from either going trick-or-treating or from staying out late or for something like that?
Mm-hmm.
You don't know. That's the whole thing, like, with the candy with the fucking razors in it.
Right.
It was all rumor.
Or now with the fentanyl.
Well, I tend to believe that, but the candy with the razors thing, that was
a
known
big
rumor.
scare. Yep.
But it was a big scare.
Check the apples.
So you don't know if parents started that to keep their kids from doing something bad.
Right.
You never know. All right, so I don't think it's Satanists. Richard Cottingham, I lean towards him only because of that documentary and certain things that were said in that documentary. He used to actually strangle girls with their crosses.
Yes.
With the cross.
With the cross,
He
right.
targeted women that wore crosses. Targeted women with dark hair. Looks just like Jeanette. A lot of the girls look just like Jeanette. And in the beginning, when he was killing, right around when Jeanette died, like the time when Jeanette died, when he was killing girls, they were young girls. They were like teenagers.
He changed his whole pattern.
He changed his pattern later on and started killing prostitutes and stuff like that and beheading them and lighting them on fire.
Much better.
Much better. But in the beginning, it was young girls. So I tend to think that might be a possibility, a strong possibility. The other thing, which is a little more like not risque, a little more like boring theory, is that either a kid that was involved with the police department, a kid that was involved with the Reverend, like the Reverend's kids or something, or in general, friends of hers that really loved her, they hung out and something happened and they brought her to the woods to leave her there, knowing that she would be found in that place because she was found, and knowing that, you know, because somebody had to bring her there. The way she was positioned, the way that she had, you know, she was wearing sandals, she couldn't walk up there herself. And they said that she was put in a position that wasn't just like, it didn't look like she was dumped there. It looked like she was placed. So it's like, it's possible that there were 2 or 3 people that were like, loved her. Something happened, which I think is drugs, honestly, especially knowing that she previously did drugs.
Right.
That whole kind of brought it all in. Placed her there. I think the lead thing, going back to the lead in her system, when I looked it up, and strangulation too. Strangulation and lead, high lead content, present in your body when you die of a heroin overdose.
Ooh, interesting.
So, it could have been heroin, or it could have been she smoked, because somebody did say, I knew Jeanette and she smoked weed, and that's all she really did. So it could have been laced marijuana with opiate in the marijuana that she didn't know, and she did it, and it killed her. Or the combination between the cold medicine and the opiates killed her. And their friends freaked out, because I had a lot of friends back in the day that if you OD'd, they would like drop you somewhere.
Right.
And they
That was
freaked
the thing
out
back
and
then.
didn't know what to do, and they brought her to the woods, or they were partying in the woods lower, and they brought her up to the top
To kind of hide her.
to the hill.
Yeah. Run to the
That's
hill.
what I think.
Yeah.
Even though it's more boring, it's a little
But
more
it's legitimate theory.
legitimate.
Yeah.
Right. So
all right. So those are your and that was very good. Now, I have thought of all those theories that you thought of, very interesting. But I still am going to lead to the Richard Cottingham thing. But what's your main theory? What's the main thing you think of?
I think it was an accident.
An accident. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I think the reason that people didn't come forward, I think a lot of people are dead. I mean, if you look up, her entire family is dead except for one sibling. He's the only one alive, and he's like a geezer. He's like 87, 88 years old. Like,
can't even not shit his pants at this
and
point.
I think a lot of the other people, left the area. They just don't, like, or
it's
dead
very
or whatever.
weird.
It's,
like, even like we looked up like high school records and stuff of people. And
oh yeah, summer of '72.
Yeah, and Jeanette's actually listed as one of those lost kids.
So yeah, we looked up like old yearbooks and stuff, and a lot of people had like in their quotes. So we looked up her yearbook that she would have graduated in 1974. And a lot of people wrote, "I will never forget the summer of '72," and I'm like, why? What happened in the summer of '72?
Right.
Other than she died, but that's like weird, right?
Big partying summer. I don't know. Like,
Right.
I know what you did last summer type of theory. So I don't know. Very, very interesting. I'm gonna miss this case. We've done a lot of research.
I know
on
it
this
was a
case.
good case. I kind of hope it is him, and that he admits to it and it gets closed.
At least have some closure to it.
Because I feel like if it's not him, then there's not going to be any closure.
You're right, because your theory, which is a very good theory, nobody's ever going to confess to that.
Or if they're alive, you never know. They might not be alive.
Might not be fucking dead by now. I mean, like I said, a little bit of an old case.
Or maybe if they allow it to be reopened and they like test for DNA, we can fucking figure this out. I mean, we come from Blairstown, New Jersey, where one of the most famous cold cases was in New Jersey.
Yes.
And that was just solved over like 6 months ago. Not even.
When was she found? She was found in the 70s, right?
80s.
80s, okay.
And they finally figured out what happened to her.
Right.
And who she was.
Right.
Because she didn't know who she was. So part of it was like figuring out who she was and then why.
Right.
So, I mean, it can be done.
It can be done, and we hope it's done. We hope at least, if anything, we shed some light on some of the facts and, brought maybe some new thoughts or I don't know about evidence, but new thoughts and enlighten some of the parts of this case. What is
Right.
our goal here? Our goal isn't to change the world, but we want to maybe shed some light on this, bring this case to attention, the people's attention, the public's attention again. I think we've accomplished that here tonight. I think it's been pretty good. Now we're gonna do our next podcast is gonna be November, closer to Thanksgiving.
Yep.
We haven't gotten the case yet, but I can tell you it's gonna be pretty good. So thank you so much for tuning into us. Thank you much for tuning into our podcast. Like I said, we'll be back next week with another live show.
Next week, not next week. Next
I'm
month.
sorry. I'm used to saying next
month.
week.
I know you're used to
Our
saying
old
next
podcast was a weekly thing. This is a monthly thing.
Monthly.
So we'll be back next month. We had a great time with you guys. So we're going to end it right now. And thanks for tuning in, folks. And good.
Sing